Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR English. Sorry, hang on for a second. Sorry for that. Okay, so this is week 8 of classes, which means that this is the second last week of classes in term 1A, and so next week is week 9, the last week of classes in term 1A. So if you're not finished by the end of next week or the following week, which is our admin week, then keep working on whatever it is you're working on, the lessons or the culminating activity. You will not be withdrawn. You can still continue working. PLAR students can continue working until we're done in June. So remember that just because the term is over doesn't mean you are done. Keep working on whatever it is you're working on. Okay, so 2 ways to participate in classes, radio and Zoom. The instructions are in the study guide, or if you don't have a study guide, you can ask me or your DEC. All PLAR English students are welcome to attend classes, so even if you signed up for PLAR English IL, you can still attend the radio Zoom classes. To contact me, you can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook. And all of my contact information is on the front page of the study guide and every lesson. And the recorded classes from last year are still available on the WASA YouTube channel. By the end of this term, the new classes, so the classes that we're recording this year, will be all available on YouTube. Right now, only the classes for this year up to where we are today are available, but if you need anything from lesson 5, the classes from last year are available on YouTube. So you can still go to our WASA YouTube channel and find the classes from last year if you need any help with lesson 5. Of course, you can also contact me as well. So to find your classes on our YouTube channel, first of all, go to YouTube and then search for WASA Distance Education Center. Type that into the search bar. Then once you've done that, you will see our logo and just a little small WASA Distance Education Center. So you kind of have to look carefully for it because we don't have the big icons that some of the programs have. So you have to look for our logo and then our name. Then you click on that link. Then once you open our channel, you will see a selection of random classes listed there. You can't look through that for your class because basically you'll never find it. What you need to do is go to playlists. Once you open the playlists, then you will see all of the playlists for all of the courses that we have done in last year and this year. So for this year, they will be titled, say for example, PLAR English 2025-2026. So that's this year's classes, the ones we started recording as of September this year. If you're looking for some classes that are not being taught this year yet, you can scroll down and you will see courses for 24-25. So for example, the PLAR Science and the PLAR Math that have not been taught this year yet will be taught in term 1A. The classes that are there are from last year, from 2024-2025. So if you need help with those classes, any of those, and the work for those subjects, you can go to those playlists. So what you need to do is once you find the subject that you're working on, click View Full Playlist under the title, and then once you click that, you will see the playlist for that subject. So all of the classes listed for that subject. For the PLAR courses, they're listed by lesson number and key question number, starting with the most recent. So, of course, it's going to be lesson 5, key question 19. So, this is for the 24-25 school year, so last year. So, as I mentioned, here you will find if you need help with key question 19 or key question 18, so lesson 5, you'll need to go to the 24-25 school year for that. Okay, just a reminder that at the end of Term 1A, WASA will have 2 student draws, one for students who earned a credit during this term and one for students who submitted work during this term. So for every lesson that you submit, your name will be entered into the student work draw, and for every credit that you earn, your name will be entered into the student credit draw. So for PLAR students especially, you can end up finishing, if you do the culminating activity, 2, 3, or 4, or even 5 of the subjects in one term. So that way, if you do all 5, your name will be entered into that draw 5 times. So try to complete as much work as you can. Of course, keeping in mind you don't want to rush your work. You want to make sure you're getting something from it so that when you move on to your next subject or course, you will have some background for that. Just a reminder to all PLAR students, and this only applies to PLAR students, you have the option of writing the culminating activity instead of doing the lessons and key questions. So even if you have started on the lessons and you've completed and submitted some work, you can decide, you can choose to stop working on the key questions and move on to the culminating activity, especially if you're finding the work really easy. So some people who are in the workforce, do letters and memos and read and write and that type of thing all day long, or you might work with math all day long, and so you know what you're doing, and you're quite capable of just doing the culminating activity and not having to go through the key questions and the lessons. So if that's the case, then like I said, you can choose to do the culminating activity. If you pass the culminating activity, then you get the missing credits for that subject and you can just move on to the next subject. If you're not successful with the culminating activity, then you will have to go through the lessons and complete the key questions, and then you write another culminating activity after the work is finished. So you look at your skills and decide what's going to work best for you. If you have a very weak background in math, then you're better off doing the lessons, because the culminating activity, in the culminating activity, we do everything that we cover in the lesson. So you do the basics of math, we get into algebra and geometry as well. So if you have a weak background in those, then you probably don't have a very good chance of passing the culminating activity. So it's a good idea to do the key questions. With some of the other subjects, the history, the geography, the science, and to a certain degree the English, if you're good at reading and understanding what you read, then you will have no trouble with the culminating activities. Now, with English, of course, then you have to be able to write incomplete sentences. You have to be able to write a paragraph and an essay as well. So if you're weak in that area, it might be a good idea to do the lessons. But like I said, you can just get the culminating activity, take a look at it, and decide, okay, this is too difficult, I'm going to do the lessons. You can do it that way as well. Okay, so if you choose to do the lessons, as you go through the lessons, you will notice that there are support questions that are scattered throughout the lesson. So you read a section, there's a support question. You read another section, there's another support question. So those support questions are practice for you to do before you do the key questions. Okay, the key questions are the questions that you submit to me for marking. The support questions are the ones that you do first, and they get you ready for the key questions. There are answers to the support questions near the end of the lesson, right before the key questions. So after you do a support question, go to the answers, check your answers against the ones that are there. If you're doing really well with the support questions, then you move on to the key questions. if you're struggling with the support questions, you need to watch the class again, contact me for help, or read the lessons again. Okay, whatever is going to help you get through it. For submitting your work, and that can be for submitting the lessons or submitting the culminating, the first way to do it is to give it to your DEC, and your DEC will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. If you do not have a learning center in your community and no DEC, or if your DEC is away and the learning center is closed, then you can submit your own work. Okay, so you don't really have to wait for the DEC to be there. If you are submitting your own work, be sure to write your name on your work. Okay, the name that you registered with, because if you send it through Facebook, your Facebook name is not always the name that we have in our records. So I don't know who you are. Or if you're sending it by email, your email address might have a different last name, for example. And then again, we don't know who you are. So make sure that you put your name, the name that you registered with, on your work so that we know who you are and we can send it back to you. So if you are submitting your own work, one way to do it, if you have access to a scanner, you can scan and email your work to our student work email, which is studentwork@nnec.on.ca, and make sure you CC it to me. Or if you have access to a fax machine, you can fax to our toll-free fax line. If that doesn't work for you, then you can use your smartphone. With your smartphone, you can either take photos of your work or scan your work using a built-in scanner on your phone, and then you can either email it to that same student work email and CC to me, or you can send your work using Facebook Messenger. So you can post the pictures on Facebook and send it to me that way. Again, like I said, make sure you put your name on the work. If you live in Sioux Lookout or the surrounding area, you can stop by WASA, our WASA office on Front Street, and drop off your work either in our outdoor mailbox, especially if we're closed, which is located at the side of the building in the WASA parking lot, or you can ring our doorbell at the front door off Front Street and give your work to the person who answers the door. You can also use Google Docs and send me the link. So make sure the link is shareable when you send it to me so that I have access to your work. Okay, so lots of ways to submit your work. You can also type it into an email and email it to me that way. Whatever works better for you, whatever way I can get your work. All right, so let's start off with a review then of what we did in class on Monday, and today we will be finishing up lesson 4, so that next week, our last week of classes, we will be working through lesson 5. So on Monday we talked about audience and purpose. So when we're writing, we are always writing for a purpose. There is a reason for writing, and we're writing for someone. So the different purposes for writing that we have looked at are to persuade, to inform, and to entertain. So if you have trouble remembering what they are, think of PIE, P-I-E. Again, P, persuade, I, inform, and E, entertain. So when we're writing to persuade, we're writing to try to convince somebody to do something or to think a certain way or to believe something. So if you're trying to figure out what type of writing or what the author's purpose is, ask yourself, did the author try to convince you of something, to convince you to do something, or to convince you to think a certain way? Or did the author want to change your opinion? So you think that walking is good exercise, and the author is telling you it is good, but if you run, it's better exercise. So is it the author trying to change your opinion about something? If the author's purpose is to inform, did the author give you facts? Writing to inform is all about the facts. They're not trying to convince you of something. They don't want you to do something. They just want to teach you something. They want to give you facts. So did the author teach you something? Did you learn something new? The other purpose is to entertain. So the entertain is basically for enjoyment. So did the author make you laugh? Did the author tell a story? Did the author amuse you? Okay, it might be, did the author make you scream or make you feel nauseous or whatever? So that type of writing is for entertainment. It's generally things like novels, short stories, plays, those types of things. Those are entertainment, for entertainment. Okay, so the three purposes that we generally stick to are persuade, inform, and entertain. Okay, so as I said, when we are writing, we're writing for a reason. The reason might be to complain about something. It might be to, again, to entertain, to persuade, to inform, whatever. But we're always writing, again, to an audience, with an audience in mind. So a fundamental principle of writing is understanding your audience. Who are you writing for? How should you approach different groups of people? How should your words change? And how should your approach adapt? So if you're writing an email or a letter to different people, then your language, your tone, all that stuff is not going to be the same. So for example, when you're writing to friends, you might use a more informal approach, so very casual. For example, your message made me ROTFL, roll on the floor laughing. So use of acronyms, use of emojis in your writing. So, sending a text, sending a email, you might not even use a greeting. So when we talked about professional letters, you always use a greeting. So if you're writing a friend, you might not. You might just go right into your message right away. If you're writing to an employer or your instructor, someone you don't know very well, then you're going to use a more formal style. So thank you for the message. Thank you for your message. I appreciate the sentiment. So very formal language, no use of emojis or acronyms or anything like that. Your grandmother, when you're communing with a grandparent, you might strike a balance between formal and informal. Okay, so you're not going to talk to a grandparent or an older person the same way you would to a young person. So for example, you're not going to say to your grandma, your message made me ROTFL. They probably wouldn't understand it. Okay, so for your grandma, thanks for the message. I loved it. So these messages here basically are the same thing. You're thanking someone for their message, but depending on your audience, you're saying it differently. So you're formal, you're informal, or you're a mixture of the two, depending on who your audience is. So whenever you're writing anything, you have to think about who you're writing for, and then that will help you think about what kind of language you should be using. How formal do you need to be, or how informal can you be, so that you're not embarrassing yourself, you're not embarrassing the person that you're sending it to, or you're not being can't think of the word, you're not being insincere. So think about who you're writing for. And if you're working, if it's for a school, for a class, a course, you're writing for your teacher, obviously, but you still need to think about, what if it was somebody else? What if I was actually writing this letter to my boss? Or what if I was actually writing this letter to the mayor or the chief? Again, think about the language. And the language that you use makes a huge difference, because some people will not take you seriously if your language is not appropriate, if it's not formal enough. Okay, so remember that. Okay, so That was purpose and audience for writing. So today we're going to be looking at different types of writing, graphic texts and summary paragraphs. So in your lesson beginning on page 11, what is a graphic text? So you're going to read through page 11, which gives you information on a graphic text. Then on to page 12, talks about different types of graphic text and how to read a graphic text. Page 13, again, how to read a graphic text. Page 14, there's an example. And page 15, there are examples of graphic texts. Page 16, support question number 27. Answer that question, and once you're done, go to the end of the lesson and look for the answers to the support question. So make sure you do that question first and then check your answers. Okay, so graphic texts, what are they? So graphic texts combine words with graphics or visuals such as pictures, tables, maps, schedules, and graphs. So there's a couple of examples here that you can see here. So these are graphic texts, and they have, when you look at them, you can see there's a lot of words, there's pictures, there's arrows, speech bubbles, all that thing. In the first one, the poster. In the second one, we've got what we call a Venn diagram, so circles overlapping, colors being used there. The bottom of the page here again, we have, octagons with different things in them. We've got numbers, we've got shapes, we've got some words. And then the fourth one over here, we have another poster with, again, words, pictures, colors, shapes, different things being used. So those are graphic texts. Often a writer will show information with graphics because it requires less space and provides the reader with a lot of information at a glance. So you can look at it and look through it quickly and get the information instead of having to read through several paragraphs, for example. Pamphlets, posters, and even booklets are common examples of graphic texts. Okay, so how do you read a graphic text? So when people present you with a graphic text, it's important to look at everything in that graphic. Everything is there for a reason. So before you actually start reading, look over the text to determine what type it is and which elements are used. So look at it and see what kind of graphic text it is. Is it a graph? Is it is it like an organizer where you have to follow the arrows around? Is it something that you can start wherever you want? So look at it and see what type of graphic text it is. Examine the titles. Every graphic text will have a title. Any headings, so that anything that's in bigger font, any captions, and any images. Start with the title. The title tells you what the graphic is about. So just like when we looked at newspaper articles, the headline tells you what the article is about. The title tells you what the graphic is about. The captions may also use words and phrases from the text to show how the graphic is related to the information in the written text. So captions, remember, are the little words underneath the picture. And then recall what you already know about the topic or subject. So before you read it, think about, what do I already know about this? During reading, read all the labels and examine how they are related to the graphic. Each label has a purpose. They wouldn't be there if it didn't have a purpose. The most important labels may be in capital letters, bold type, or a larger font. So more important stuff is going to stand out more. Follow the arrows and lines if there are arrows and lines. They may be used to show movement or direction or connect to the things they name. Look for the use of color or symbols to emphasize important words and information. Some graphical texts have a legend or a key to explain the meaning of specific symbols and colors. So, for example, in this one right here, you've got the colors, green, orange, and red, and then explains what each one is for, so that when you look at the graph, you understand what these green, orange, and red lines are all about. Study the image carefully. See if you recognize the details in the image. Read the text near the picture to find an explanation of the information in the graphic. Use the figure, number, or title and keywords to find and read the related information in the written text. Identify the relationships among the visuals and information presented. So basically, like I said, you have to look at everything that is presented, everything that's there. And then after you're done reading it, interpret the information conveyed in any of the graphics. So what information is there? Ask yourself why it's important. Rephrase information orally or in writing. Imagine that you are explaining the graphic to someone who has not read it. So if you had to explain the graphic to someone, what would you say? Thinking about that helps you to internalize the information. It helps you to remember it. Oops. Okay, so features of graphic text. We've already talked about a few of them. So some techniques and signposts. So the font, style, and size. And the purpose and effect of that. The headings, of course, just like in a news article, are the largest. Subheadings are medium and text is smallest. So if we go back up here. So here we have our heading, tips for a healthy lifestyle. Then we have our subheadings, drink more water, get enough sleep, meditate often, exercise regularly, eat more fruits and vegetables, stop smoking and avoid passive smoking, cut down on oily and sugary food, and breathe deeply. So those are our subheadings. And then under our subheadings, we have some text, some explanation, some extra information. So again, like I said, look at everything. So the headings capture your attention first. Consistency for each of these three types is key. An element of script that is not consistent with these types would draw the reader's attention. Okay, so headings are the largest, and that's what you're going to see first, and then you're going to see the subheadings next, and then your text is the smallest. So columns next. Organize information so that the reader scans information from top to bottom. So sometimes information is organized in columns because that's like this one that we're looking at right now. In this column we've got our techniques and signposts, and in this column we've got the purpose and the effect of those techniques and signposts. So columns are to organize information. Rows, same idea, organize information so that the reader skims information from side to side. The upper left corner, so if you have text in the upper left corner, it typically contains the most important information because this is usually what the reader reads first. And this is not the upper left corner, that's the upper right corner. So over here would be what you read first. Bullets. Okay, it could be a box, it could be an arrow, it could be a dot, whatever. Also known as nuggets or points. They draw the reader's attention to a list of special features or examples. Boldface, used to highlight specialized terms, keywords, or words used for the first time. Words in bold allow the reader to skim and scan easily and quickly. Words in bold allow the reader to locate information without having to read an entire text. So if you're asked to look for something specific in a poster, look and see if the word is in boldface. Reversed type. So normally our type is like what we see here. It's white background with black ink. Sometimes it'll be a black background with white ink. White type on a black background provides greater impact than the usual black type on a white background. Black type on a white background is, like I said, it's what we always do. We generally have a white background. If you reverse it, then it tends to stand out more. Okay, white space. A picture or piece of text draws the reader's attention if it is surrounded by white space. The more space surrounding it, the more attention it receives. Enlarging. The enlargement of shapes, logos, clip art, and pieces of text will draw the attention of the reader because of their dominance. To surround a large image or block of text with smaller ones, as with word webbing, creates a central focus and a sense of balance for the reader. So if something is in a large circle in the middle, that's what draws your attention. Tilting and curving, these techniques attract the reader's attention because they are out of the ordinary. Text boxes, organize, separate, and differentiate blocks of text. So again, if we go up here, back to what we were looking at before, so we have use of text boxes here. So this is one thing, this is another thing, here's another thing. So using text boxes to separate information. Whoops. A chart, a graph, or a table condenses information to allow for quick reference by the reader. Patterned versus random layout. Arrangement of visual elements in either orderly or abstract fashion can either create a soothing or a jarring effect on the reader. So again, because of the way it's laid out, it might make you might be more attracted to it. It might be more interesting. Tinting and shading allow the reader to readily differentiate adjoining boxes or cells containing text. Can also, instead of just tinting and shading, different colors. Symmetrical versus asymmetrical, the balanced, which is symmetrical, versus the imbalanced, placement of images on the left versus the right sides of a page, and use of asterisks. Alert the reader to view a footnote containing special conditions, restrictions, a definition, or an explanation of material just read. So those are some of the techniques that are used in graphic texts. Additional tips for reading graphic texts: look at the title first and then look at all of the different kinds of texts, the headings, the charts, the labels, tables, etc. Ask yourself, what is the general topic of the text? Notice which headings, illustrations seem most important. So when you're trying to figure what's most important, look at the size of the text that's used and then the placement on the page. Where is it? Is it at the very top, which is going to be something more important, or if it's in the center and it's bigger, more important? And consider, how are the various graphics connected? How is the printed information supported by the graphics? So are they joined by arrows? Does one lead into the other? Are there circles connected? That type of thing. And do the graphics. So how is the printed information supported by the graphics? Is it a picture that helps explain it? Is it a diagram? Okay, so a little bit of practice with graphic texts. Read the selection below and answer the questions that follow. Okay, so I am going to do a dual page here so we can see. So in the selection, the graphic text, what is the title right here, what is hazardous household waste? And if we look at the other headings, safe use of hazardous waste, disposing of hazardous waste. Okay, so those are our major headings there. If we look at our pictures that are there, we've got pictures of different things that can be considered hazardous waste, and then we've got symbols that look pretty hazardous to me. Those circles with the line through them telling you not to do something. Little things that you see around your house. We got larger print, we've got smaller print. Lots of different things going on here with our graphic. Okay, so let's read the selection. What is hazardous household waste? You've probably got some. Leftover household cleaners, paint, gasoline, batteries, and prescription medicines are just a few. It's up to you to dispose of your waste safely. So this graphic is going to be identifying hazardous waste and how to dispose of them. Safely. So we've got poison. The different types of poisons are listed, and we've got the symbol that indicates poison. We've got corrosive, examples of corrosive materials, the symbol for corrosive materials, examples of flammable materials, the symbol for flammable materials, and example of explosive materials, and the symbol for explosive materials. So next, safe use of hazardous waste. Pouring hazardous products down the drain can have serious effects on our environment. They can contaminate the soil, create poisonous fumes, damage the sewer system, and pollute our water supply. So basically, and then we have this symbol, basically it says do not pour anything down your drain or hazardous waste, because that's what we're talking about. And at the bottom, disposing of hazardous waste. The recommended disposal methods for some products. So you can either pour it down the sink or drain, some of them, put it in your regular garbage, take it to a hazardous waste depot, or take directly to a landfill or dump. So 4 ways of disposing of hazardous waste. So then we have our fuel, gasoline, diesel, and kerosene, and here is the symbol, which means take it to a hazardous waste depot. Note, recycle or give away where possible, and always store in an appropriate fuel container. Okay, the next one, nail polish. There's a garbage bag, which means put it in the regular garbage. Note, let harden in a well-ventilated area before putting it in the garbage. Enamel or oil-based paints. We've got that little house symbol, which means you take it to a hazardous waste depot. Alternatives, latex or water-based paints are less harmful. So if you use latex or water-based paints, they're less harmful to the environment. Okay, then the next one, hair lotions, dyes, and shampoos. We've got a sink, so that means you can pour it down your sink, and using use of alternatives, natural herbal products. Unused medicines, hazardous waste depot. Asbestos, take directly to the landfill or the dump. Only some landfills are licensed to manage asbestos waste. Take it to a designated location. So if you take it to the dump, they should be able to tell you where you can take it if they can't take it. At a household hazardous waste depot, about 75% of the waste will be recycled into new products. So the more stuff you can take there, the better. And this is the recycle symbol. Call the household hazardous waste hotline at, and there's a number for more information on household hazardous waste depot hours, free literature, hazardous products. Okay, so a lot of information there about hazardous wastes. Okay, so now some questions. About this. Okay, number 1. Over here, the small box in the first section shows A, complete lists of hazardous material. B, how to use hazardous materials safely. C, how to dispose of hazardous materials. Or D, symbols placed on packaging materials. So the small boxes, so these are the small boxes. What do they tell us? They tell us, I don't know if it's a complete list, but they do show us the symbols placed on packaging materials, so for hazardous waste. They definitely don't tell us how to use hazardous materials safely or how to dispose of hazardous materials. And like I said, I don't think that's an exhaustive list of hazardous materials. Number 2, which information would most encourage people to dispose of hazardous waste safely? The recycling program, the effect on the environment, the convenient hours of depot operation, or the additional information provided by the hotline? Which information would most encourage people to dispose of hazardous waste safely? So in that graphic, which information? Obviously not the symbols at the top, not the part that says safe use of hazardous waste. We go down to disposing of hazardous waste. So again, which information would most encourage people to dispose of hazardous waste safely? The effect on the environment, the convenient hours of depot operation, the additional information provided by the hotline. So this is kind of an up to you thing. What do you think would, move this in the right position here. What part of this do you think would help encourage people to dispose of it? I would say the effect on the environment. Number 3, how many different methods of disposal does this selection recommend? So look at this disposing of hazardous waste? 1, 2, 3, 4. We already counted them. So 4. Number 4, according to this selection, how should people dispose of nail polish? Right here, it says put it in the regular garbage. Number 5, what is the best meaning for alternatives as used in the disposing of hazardous waste section? Exceptions, other choices, leftover material, or recommendations. So other choices, things that you can use instead. Number 6, what is the connection between the pictures shown across the top of the selection and the information in the selection? Pictures are arranged as an arch. No, they're not. The pictures are shown again in the third box. No, they're not. The pictures show examples of hazardous household items, and the pictures show the labels that indicate hazardous household products. So, well, it's actually H and J. So they show examples of household items, and they show the labels that indicate hazardous household products. Number 7, what does the symbol in the safe use of hazardous waste section mean? So that's this symbol here. Do not pour hazardous waste products down the drain. Use water to clean hazardous waste product containers in the sink. Replace your sink after disposing of hazardous waste products. Do not wash your hands after using hazardous waste products. A, do not pour hazardous waste products down the drain. Okay, let's go back here. And so that brings us to key question 16, graphic texts. So you're going to take a look at the graphic text that is here, and then there's just a few questions that you have to answer after. What is the message in the infographic? So what is it telling you to do or not to do or be aware of? Number 2, in your opinion, what makes this infographic successful in communicating its message? How is it successful when you look at it? So what is the message? If you get the message right away, then what is it that gives you that message? Is it the title? Is it the pictures? Is it the numbers? What is it? And then on the next page, number 3, use the information in the infographic to write a paragraph that gives the same information. So you're just going to write it out in sentences. Be sure that you have a topic sentence that lets the reader know what the paragraph is about, 2 to 3 body sentences that explain the message, and a concluding sentence. So you should have 4 to 5 sentences. And then on the next page is where you're going to write your final copy. Okay, so moving on. Page 18 of your lesson, how to write a summary. So on page 18, you're going to read page 18, 19, and 20 on how to write a summary. Page 21, there is a short story. 21, 22, 23, sorry. And then support question number 28. Following the example on the preceding page, divide Richard Wagamese's essay into chunks of 2 to 3 paragraphs and summarize each chunk in 1 or 2 sentences. So you're going to write a summary of that essay. And then some information on transition words, and then what examples of transition words on the next page, and then an example of a summary paragraph. Okay, so what is a summary? The purpose of a summary is to condense a longer piece of text, like an article or a book, into a shorter version that captures the main ideas, key arguments, and essential points. So for example, if a friend asked you what you thought of a book or what the book that you read was like or what was it about, you wouldn't tell them the entire story with every detail. You would summarize it. You would shorten it for them, focusing on the main ideas and the essential points. Summaries allow a reader to quickly grasp the core message without reading the entire document, saving time and providing a clear overview. This skill is valuable for academic and professional communication, helping to facilitate understanding and to make decisions about whether or not to read the full text. So you get a quick look at it, you don't read the full thing. So it provides a quick overview. A summary gives the reader a fast way to understand the content of a document, presentation, or other material. It condenses information. It boils down a large amount of information into a concise and digestible form by focusing on the most important ideas and omitting the minor details. It facilitates understanding. By capturing the main points, a summary helps the reader understand the original work's core message and significance. It saves time for both the reader and the writer. A summary saves time by allowing them to get the main information without having to go through the entire source. It supports other writing. Summaries are used to provide context for a paper, help write a literature review, or to contribute to a broader discussion of various sources. And it helps with comprehension. For the writer, the process of summarizing helps them to better comprehend the material themselves and identify which parts may need further elaboration. So if you can read something and then summarize it, that shows that you understand what you have read. One reason why teachers get you to summarize things. How to write a summary. Reading, first of all, read the text thoroughly. You can't skim or scan through it. You have to read it thoroughly. Read the text several times to ensure you understand everything about the author's message. On the first read, focus simply on reading instead of pausing to take notes. Try to identify the purpose, the supporting argument, and any additional details. When you read the text the second time, you can make comments in a notebook or in the margins of the text if you have a physical copy. Take notes to identify the main idea. So write the main points, themes, or thesis you recognize in the text. To identify this concept, try to determine the tone and category of the text. Okay, so the tone, is it serious? Is it formal? Is it informal? And the category, is it a letter? Is it an email? Is it a short story? Is it a novel? What? For example, it may be a literary essay or a scientific article. Next, try to find any repetitions in the text. So the repetitions indicate main points. If the author repeats some specific argument throughout the text, it means they are likely essential. Reading the title and determining the publication place and date can help you learn more about the intended audience. Next, identify the main arguments. Reread the text more carefully to find elements that support those main points. For example, you can look for repetitions, details referring to the title, or descriptions of characters. Here are tips for identifying important arguments in an article. So, first of all, print a paper copy or use a digital version that allows you to take notes, something you can mark up. Look for the sentence that tells the main concept in each paragraph and underline it. After you finish reading the entire article, read the topic sentences you underlined. Okay, so here's an example. Circle unknown words. Some things you can do, number lists of ideas, causes, reasons. So putting numbers in. Place an asterisk next to important ideas. Place brackets around important passages. Draw arrows to show relationships. Underline main ideas with full lines, minor ideas with broken lines. So those are some of the things that you can do when you're marking up the text. Then prepare your draft. Rephrase those sentences on the side of the page or in your notebook. When you note these elements, consider writing them in your own words and leave out any unimportant details. Write down the author's first and last name and the title of the article for later reference. Okay, so this is things you can do. Just write notes all over the place. Underline, circle, cross out. Just some of the things that you can do when you're working, when you're reading. Number 5, write the summary. You can start your summary with the author's name and the title of the text. For example, you can use some variation of, according to Martin Summers in The Child and the Wolf, to introduce your text. Then include the thesis of the author in your first sentence. Ideally, your first sentence summarizes the text, while the rest of your summary restates the main concepts that support the thesis. It's essential to use your own words and paraphrase these ideas to make your summary as concise as possible by avoiding examples of to make your summary as concise as possible by avoiding examples of unrelated facts. Number 6, quote the author. Quoting a specific passage from the author may be one of the best ways to explain their main point. If the author has a credential, such as a position of power or a relevant award, you can mention it to help demonstrate the authority of the text. So, for example, you can say something like, in his lecture about inflation, Polders, a professor in economics at Southern University, to introduce the author and make the claim that comes next to sound more reputable. Okay, make sure when you're using quotes, you use your quotation marks. Okay, number 7, conclude the summary. Restate the author's conclusion or last main point to end your summary. Even though a summary is a short text, restating the most important part can help ensure your audience understands what you're trying to convey. If this summary is for a professional presentation, consider listing the most important piece of data in the summary to help the audience remember it. And then number 8, correct and refine. Once you complete your summary, consider reading it out loud and make any necessary corrections. Delete any repetition and try to transition words when necessary to help every sentence flow to the next. Also, check your grammar and spelling to ensure your summary doesn't have errors. You can have a friend or colleague read your summary to help notice any corrections you may have missed. So making use of editing and revising. Okay, so writing an article summary paragraph, same thing as writing any paragraph. You have your introduction, your body paragraphs, and your concluding paragraph, if it's more than one paragraph. If it's one paragraph summary, you have your introductory sentence, your body sentences, and your concluding sentences. Okay, so that brings us to key question, if I can find it now, 17. There's a news article here, how practical is Google's driverless car, and you can see that of course there's paragraphs, and then some sections have headings. So read through the sections, take note of the headings. The article is 3 pages long. After the article there are 3 questions. Read the article, use 3 details from the article to describe the driverless car. Identify 2 types of people who might benefit from a driverless car and explain why they would benefit. And then question 3, put yourself in a customer's shoes. Do you think that you would want to buy a driverless car? And then there's part 2, in no more than 150 words, write a paragraph summarizing the article. Okay, so you might want to read the article again to write your summary. Read through this very carefully, and you're going to write your summary on pages 44 and 45 if you need that much room. Okay, so that is it for lesson 4. If you have any questions, you can contact me. You can also watch the class again or read through the material again.